Call the Valley Park Board of Education meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Student spotlight, the next item on the agenda.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be able to recognize some of our elementary students at a board meeting. Tonight, we have 3 students that we would like to recognize, and they were recommended by the classroom teachers. So Tahira, the first, is our first student. She's in 3rd grade. And I'm going to read what Mr. B had to say about you. Tahira has been a joy to have in the classroom since she walked through our doors. She embodies what it is to be a role model. Every day, Tahira comes in with a smile on her face and a great attitude. She always greets everyone in the classroom and then gets right to work. Tahira is so supportive and compassionate towards her peers. She is always trying to help her classmates with their academics, but her ability to identify and help anyone who's having a bad day is truly special. She is a hardworking student and is not afraid to try new things. This is what Mr. B had to say. There's no doubt in my mind that Tahira will do big things in this world, but for now, we are enjoying her accomplishments at Valley Park Elementary.
Okay, our 4th grade student is Connor Doherty. Mrs. Shamel recommended Connor because he deserves to be recognized for showing kindness, compassion, and empathy towards others. Connor really goes above and beyond to care for and support other students in the classroom. We watch Connor intentionally include them when no one else does. He checks in on them, he includes them in conversation, and asks them to join his group all on their own. When they are upset, he tries to comfort them and cheer them up. Other adults have also made comments about Connor's compassion and kindness that he shows to his classmates. Congratulations.
Our next student is in 5th grade in Miss Bosworth's class, Quentin Ford. Come on up. Quentin also goes by Q. Quentin, this is what Miss Bosworth had to say about you. Quentin is the epitome of what it means to be a leader of our school. He follows the Hawk way daily and is a great example of each of those pillars. Being respectful, responsible, and safe. Inside the classroom, he is the first to volunteer and answer, lend a helping hand, or encourage a classmate. Outside of our room, he continues to be a strong leader, willing to jump in and help anyone in need. He gives his all, whether it comes to academics, sports, or friendships. And it shows in everything he does. He is extremely passionate about doing well, not only for himself, but also for others. I have no doubt that his future is extremely bright, and I'm proud to have him in my classroom. Okay, Q, keep trying your best. Keep believing in yourself, and above all else, keep being you.
Okay, the next item is athlete of the month.
something about the students.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
they want to get your
wait just a
pictures.
minute here.
Yeah, they want to get your pictures.
Each month will recognize two outstanding students for their athletic performances in the preceding month. Recommended by their coaches, these student athletes have excelled in their chosen discipline, and I'm extremely excited to share their accomplishments with you. Our first athlete of the month is Jenna Prosser from our basketball team. When nominating Jenna, Coach Rawls said she's a talented athlete who's been an important part of the Lady Hawks basketball program for 4 years. This year, the team has faced a lot of adversity with injuries and illnesses, but she's shown great leadership and kept everyone on the same page through it all. We put a lot of responsibilities on her this year to guide our younger and inexperienced players, and she's excelled. Jenna is a great role model both in the classroom and on the court for the students of the Valley Park School District. Congratulations. Our next athlete of the month is from our cheerleading program, Raya Hollins. When nominated by Coach Fashion and Coach Webster, they said Raya is an essential member of this year's squad and possesses the qualities of a good, respectful leader on and off the court. Her commitment to the squad has not gone unnoticed by her coaches. She works hard during practices, encourages others, offers help when needed, and is always smiling. Raya, thank you for your dedication and the time and effort you have put into being a Valley Park cheerleader. Congratulations, Raya.
Thank you, Anna. Next is Brad Irwin with the Demographics and Enrollment Study. Brad.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces. Good to be back. Today, want to review really the cornerstone of a facility master plan, which is the demographic report. Without this information, it's difficult to make decisions that are going to impact facilities for the next 3, 5, and 10 years, unless you know what that enrollment projection might be. And so a lot of this information is pretty in-depth, trying to cover at a pretty high level. You'll see in the board packet, I think there's about an 80-page document. Luckily, I'm going to go over a 12-page document tonight. And so please stop me along the way if you have any questions. But I'll try to essentially go through it and try to explain some of this information in plain English. So you can see Business Information Services is the company that we subcontract with to do this. We're architects, not demographers, but they have done a large majority of school districts across the state, which really helps pull in data for us to be able to understand not only what's happening in Valley Park, but also how that relates to the rest of the state. Some couple key findings here to start off with, and you guys know this, but it's still a little bit of a surprise of just how tight your district boundaries are. So there's only 9 school districts in the state of Missouri that actually have a smaller geographical area than Valley Park, and that has some unique challenges and some great opportunities as well. And I think is pretty special as well as something that we felt when working with the district. A key takeaway was that as we look forward, the Valley Park, city of Valley Park is going to have a relatively stable demographic moving forward of citizens. But we'll still see an enrollment in resident students decrease about 20 to 50 students, depending on which part you're looking at. So anywhere from 3 to 7%. So again, you'll start to see some correlation with some of these numbers because a lot of that comes down to that bottom point is that there's evidence throughout the document that essentially Valley Park is an aging demographic with aging population with very little housing turnover to allow younger families to move in. And some of the key stats that really jumped out at us is that 40% of the households don't have children. 70% of the households have 2 people or less. That's pretty significant. That is a great indication of an aging population that's staying in place. Another unique piece with Valley Park is your VIC student enrollment. So at one point, the district's VIC enrollment represented about 25% of the total enrollment. Right now, it's about 8%. And you can see down on the bottom right there is the VIC enrollment since 1986 compared to the district enrollment as a whole on top. And you can see they mirror each other pretty well. Obviously, there's some spikes and dips in there, but overall, that enrollment has a pretty significant impact on the total enrollment of the district. You can also see there up on the top chart, that big climb from mid-90s to the early 2000s. And that really is that impact of the housing boom that occurred within the city in the 1990s. Also, though, what you have right now is we have facilities that can hold a lot more kids than you currently have, and a lot more kids than are projected that you'll have in the next 5 to 10 years. When we're looking at this, though, is that there's just some interesting things that occur. And one of those is that over that 2000 to 2010 period, your district enrollment was basically flat. You increased by about 11 students. Well, that occurred, though, as Valley Park, the city was increasing by over 700 people. And so there's a weak correlation there between the population of Valley Park and the number of students. And you'll see that a little bit later, but it's pretty significantly different or weaker than normal. A lot of the conversation we're going to have today is about babies and seniors. So right now, the projection is that by 2031, there will be 242 less children, or about 15% less children under the age of 5 than what is today. So again, back to that aging population. And that is in direct opposite of over 60 years old is going to increase by 17%. So your under 5 is going to decrease by about the same amount as your over 60 is going to increase. We look at this chart here and just kind of, it's really, I know it's tough to read on the screen, and hopefully it's a little bit easier in your paper, but really what we want to look at is school age cohorts. So your first grade this year is your second grade class next year, your third grade class the year after that. Those cohorts were growing at a rate of 8%, but the population of over 55 was growing at 55%. Again, that correlation between the two. So again, just another indication of a high population of aging, that high aging population without people moving out of the district. Sometimes we're work with districts that the kindergarten enrollment may be looked at as an indicator for future enrollment. Sometimes members of the public or a parent might think that as well. And some districts that's true, but for Valley Park, it's actually a very weak correlation. So if that number to the left, if we say a 1.0 indicates a perfect fit and 0 indicates no trend, Valley Park's trend line is 0.0074. So essentially, there's not a good correlation at all between whatever your kindergarten enrollment is, high or low, to what the enrollment of the district or what that cohort of kids will look like moving through the district moving forward. But the births are a better correlation. So again, using that 1.0 to 0, the number of births in the district is 0.845 or 846. So again, when we look at those births, that's a better indicator of what that future enrollment might look like compared to what your kindergarten classes are. And that gets back to something that's a challenge really across the state, is that births are decreasing. They have been, they're projecting to do so. The actual lowest birth rate total was in 2020, which is pre-pandemic. So whatever the pandemic had impact on that for 21 and 22 and moving forward, we're not exactly sure, but indications are it's less. We just don't know exactly how less. So when we look at it, this is how this relates specifically to Valley Park, is that basically it's about 21% decline in childbearing women moving forward, which is going to equal to just a fewer number of females having over 200 less kids by the time we get to 2031, which is that time frame that we're looking at. Look here at that impact of housing and how it related back to the district as well. So you can see there in that blue box, the number of residences that were built, but you correlate that with the additional enrollment that came, and it's not necessarily as strong of a correlation as you think it might be. And you flip that over to then the decline. So basically, since 2008, there's been virtually no new homes built. So when we look at this, you know, it's an interesting correlation, but you also have to remember 25% of your enrollment at one point in time didn't live within the boundaries of Valley Park. And so that has an impact in some of these numbers. So don't get too lost in that number down at the bottom, because it's odd, but what the numbers actually show is that enrollment decreases by almost 5 students for every new home built. It's a weird number. It's not really logical. It's just what the numbers represent. But what that tells us is that there could be somehow a bunch of new houses that are built somewhere in Valley Park, and you're not going to see a large number of kids come into that based on what the last 30 years of your district has looked like. When we look at, we talk about these cohorts again, and the image on your screen, if it's a record low cohort, so like the lowest, so for example, the leftmost salmon colored box in 2015 and 2016, that 7th grade class was the lowest 7th grade class ever. If you saw yellow boxes up there, that would represent the highest grade ever. And so you can see there's a lot of salmon colors, which basically says that since 2015, there have been a record 9 record low cohorts. And your most recent high cohort was back in 2011 and 2012 with the 11th grade. So they're completely, obviously, out of the system. And over the last 3 years, 23 out of the 39 cohorts possible decreased year over year. But we're seeing this is going on across the state in many school districts. And it's even evident too when we look at our private schools. So your private schools, actually physically called them, we track their enrollments as well. Their decline from 2019 and since 2019 have been almost 12% as well. So you can see that impact of low births just in general, but also aging population in the area. This is just a different graphical representation of some of the data that we saw in the past. Our demographer has never seen a 20% valley followed by a 20% spike, followed by another 20% valley in a 3 to 4 year period. So that's why I wanted to call attention to it. But if we just even that out, you can just see where that trend line is. And it's basically kind of getting back to that 1990 level. When we look at the impact of the VIC enrollment, so over the last 3 years, the total enrollment across the district has dropped 26%, but your VIC enrollment has dropped 64%. So again, that's a pretty heavy weight, especially when we've talked about it. At one point it was 25% of your enrollment, it's now down to about 8%. And even though those 2 graphs aren't necessarily to scale, you can see how that VIC enrollment again really aligns with that total enrollment across the district. So, at one point in time back in 2000, basically 20 years ago, that student enrollment for the VIC program was 253. And as I've seen in your board packet updates over the last couple of months, that's now down to 59. So where does that take us? What was all this information projecting out? So right now, as of September 30th, those are those numbers that we use to compare year over year. So these basically are representing your official enrollment numbers for the state. Today, you're at 745 students. The projection is in 10 years to be anywhere from 600 to 660 students. When we look at this, we like to plan around that medium line. It gives us a little bit of buffer, gives us some things to work with, but we feel that that's a safer projection to work around versus any high or low, whether it's a decrease or increase in enrollment. And then, when we look at each school, when we break it up in between the high school, the elementary and the middle school, that's those charts that look similar to the one you just saw. The chart up at the upper left, that represents your current enrollment. You want to have the capacity in the buildings to be able to handle the spikes of different age groups as they move through your buildings. And so, for example, your current 3rd and 5th grade are about 30 students larger than your current 6th and 8th graders. So that's why you'll see that spike in that middle school in 2 to 3 years from now. And we're going to talk about capacity here in a minute. We want the buildings to have enough capacity to be able to handle those spikes as they move. So if you need to have 4 classes per grade all of a sudden, or if you need to back up to 2, you have that capacity and flexibility within the buildings to be able to do that. In the demographer report, they look at capacity and utilization at a very, very macro high level. Basically, how many square feet per building. And again, what's unique about your campus is that your high school technically doesn't have a cafeteria. Your high school technically doesn't have a gymnasium. And so that's going to look a little bit different than if we somehow went down to a more micro level. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. They're valid, they're accurate, but essentially it's showing that you can almost have 50% more kids in your buildings before you hit capacity. And that's at a very macro level. But what we do, and part of the facility master plan, is to really take a look at this at a micro level. And we look at, we use the term functional capacity. We like to be in that green, which is about 80 to 95% capacity. And that's either based on how big the room is. In a room this large, you might be able to fit 30 kids. But if you only have 1 teacher, you probably only want to have 25 kids. So in a room like this, realistically, it's 25 kids. But if we were to take half the room, you could still have 25 kids per teacher, but you're not going to cram them in that small space. So maybe it's only 20 kids. So we get down to that micro level. And basically the numbers are very similar to the previous report. But we looked at, all right, how do you split up the band room? How do you split up the cafeteria and the gym to really look at this? And basically, we're projecting out over the years that you're going to have plenty of capacity. You can see we're actually in the severely underutilized category, where we're in the 40s to 60% now, and we're going to move to the 40 to 50% later. We track this for every 5 years. We look at it at each 5 years as that moves through to make sure that we're addressing that within the master plan. Because if you were to move forward with a facility improvement, this year, it may not come online for another year or 2. So we want to make sure that those decisions that we're making today are going to be valid for next year and for 10 years down the road. There are some districts that we've worked with that we've come in and they've said, we've got this huge 6th grade class or 5th grade class. They're going to be moving into the building and we got to add some trailers. We don't want to do trailers. We want to add classrooms. And then we start looking at the numbers. Well, yeah, that 5th and 6th grade might be the big ones, but 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are the small ones. And we don't want to build for the current problem, because by the time you build it, that problem might not necessarily be there. And so we want to, as we look at our facility master plan moving forward, the district's in a really, really great spot. There's some districts that are under pressure to generate new square footage. And for each square foot you generate, you have to operate it, you have to maintain it, and you have to staff it. All those things are obviously costs coming out of your operations. And so we're in a great position here to look at what you have under roof, what you have inside your walls, and how do we put it to its best use moving forward? How do we reutilize your space, reimagine your space to utilize it to its better purposes? Now, there may be some very specific programs, like whether it's performing arts, CTE, something like that, that might require specialized space, that might have to require an addition or something like that to make it better. But you have a lot of awesome square footage within your buildings that we can really look at. How do we utilize the space moving forward to meet the education delivery models that are now versus the 90s? Look at your student population now versus the 90s. Look at your student population, where it's going compared to what some of these facilities were built for. So it's a really cool position for the district to be in, to take a look and spend the money very intentionally on your facilities moving forward. And that's what's kind of the cornerstone of our facility master plan moving forward, is looking at it through this lens. We really have a great opportunity to take what you have and to keep improving it. You guys have done a fantastic job of of having some really high quality space. It's well taken care of. Some of it's starting to show its age, some of it's starting to reach end of life when you're talking about equipment and furnishings. But we can worry about, the nice thing is we have the worry or the concern or the focus on making something that you have better versus trying to invent something new or create something new. So that's about 84 pages, I think, in about 5 minutes. But I wanted to be able to get through a lot of that because I think it helps tell and weave the story all together. But I know it's also a lot of information. There's a lot of information in your packet. So I don't know if there's something I could revisit or clarify or go over again, please let me know. What questions do you have?
This is just informational, right?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
It's very interesting to see it micromanaged down to that. Machine that we're underutilized at the moment.
When do we get to the point that the underutilization is actually to the point that it might not be returning? If the student population gets down to the point that the viable district, because economies of scale, it's not possible. I mean, you're projecting to lose another 150 since to 2031, I think, roughly. Give or take, because VIC's going away. That's a given, right?
Yeah, I think when we looked at the numbers, if it was about 60 on the VIC side and about 40 on the resident side.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, I can only talk from a facility standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have to, when we're working with districts, whether it's in a growth or a decline, it's adjusting the operations to meet that. The facility side is a little bit easier to adapt quickly. And for us to make minor modifications to be able to help save on operations, but a lot of that comes down to just district operations on that
So
side.
do you ever have to put facilities to sleep? Part of the facility that you can't use because you don't have enough people?
There are districts that can do that and
Right.
have done that. There's nothing that jumps out here that says put it to sleep versus how do we utilize it better? Because you have some, there are spaces that were designed and constructed in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
That may not have been updated since. And focusing on what that space needs to look like moving forward, or just, for example, the room right next door, right? That's a great opportunity that there might be additional square footage in the building to build a better band room that isn't right next to the boardroom, for example. And so there's a lot of great opportunities that we can look at that to improve the space that you have without necessarily putting something to sleep.
Yeah, because originally it wasn't that way.
Right.
All right, well, thank you very
And
much.
that's very common, like, it just it happens over time, and that's what's great about going through this process right now, is we're able to take a step back, and the facility community has been really great to have that diverse set of eyes to help influence and help guide us and provide us that information to help, help you and guide you guys.
Right, we're just to the point that the land is so locked for the district, there's not a lot of place for new building or new homes or additional students. Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is public comments on posted agenda items. We have anybody in the public that wants to talk on a posted agenda items? Eddie? Okay.
Yeah,
Hey, Eddie, you get 3 minutes, bud.
that's it.
Yep.
I was looking at the agenda and the resurfacing of the field house. I was wondering, how is that a set in stone? Layout and coloring and wording, talking to some coaches, none of them were involved in the process, so hopefully it's just an approval to put it forth to have it done. And hopefully the coaches get some say in what it's going to look like in the final draft. Second question would be for the study.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in there like how many students, is there a way to find out how many students are in our district that don't go to our school in private school? I didn't see that in any of the slides. I looked through the bigger one, maybe I missed it. I didn't know how we can find that. I mean, do we have 75 kids that don't go to our school and go to private? Just trying to see the numbers all across the board. Because we know we've lost some to private, even, coming into high school, during high school. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Do we have anybody else? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. Next item is consent items 4.01, 4.02. Approval of the minutes and approval of the check registry. Would anybody like any of those pulled out for separate consideration? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve 4.01 and 4.02. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of the consent items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item, action items, the approval of the field house floor resurfacing for 2023 summer.
Sorry, Dr. Lowe cannot be here this evening, so I'll present this on his behalf. As has been shared with the board in several Friday memos, the last few summers, we really have experienced some challenges with our field house floor, experience with wax peeling, uneven spots, even to a point where it was unsafe, where we had to have it resurfaced again. We ultimately were concerned it had reached the life where it might need to be replaced, which is an expense that quite frankly our budget could not handle at this point. We had several floor professionals come in and examine our floor, and they have all concluded that the age, the condition, and the damage the floor has experienced over the years from a variety of conditions, that it really needs to be resurfaced. Resurfaced meaning taken all the way down to the wood and redone. As you can imagine, a piece of wood can only be taken down so many times before it's not usable anymore. All of those professionals agree that it can be done one more time before it needs to be a total floor replacement. So we basically are presenting tonight a recommendation that the Board of Education approve Dijon Inc. to resurface, sand, paint, and replenish the gym floor as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Are we just approving the vendors? We're not approving. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
She seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't hear her. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
So are we just approving the vendor? We're not approving the floor format?
No, so the what is presented tonight, both the visual and the price is what Dijon has presented to us, and that's our recommendation.
And how many years should this get us before we have to replace the floor?
Roughly 8 to 10 years. Yeah.
Was there any input from any of the coaches or anybody for this floor?
No, there really wasn't, to be completely honest. We were on a pretty tight time frame. We really weren't expecting to spend any expenditures with athletics this year. We also, as the board has been informed, through working with the chemical company Spartan, we were reimbursed for a great percentage of our wax, which is going to go towards this replacement, which makes it possible. So we basically asked all the floor companies to provide a very simple design that incorporates our district's vision and the athletic logo. As you begin to add more design and more style, the price goes up. And so being cost conscious but also trying to provide a floor that our kids and our community can be proud of. This is what we're presenting this evening.
So you're presenting the one community, one campus, limitless learning. That's a mission statement. Mission statements change.
That's
So
a vision statement.
those change all the time. Would you really want that on that floor?
Well, to me, I think our mission and our vision are important and drive our work. I think that floor is not just for athletics. We have band concerts, we have our graduation, we hold our community events like our senior breakfast is there. Our vision and mission don't change all that much. The last time ours changed was over 20 years ago before we changed this one. And so knowing that we just changed it, I believe a year or two ago, I have a lot of confidence that it would remain the same through the life of this floor.
Is it possible to go back and ask coaches for?
So we have a pretty, we just can't really add much more to it because that's going to increase the price. But also we have to make a commitment to the floor companies. There are not many left anymore. And so if we don't get on their calendar for this summer, then we'll be pushed off to the following summer.
I was more thinking like.
Can we make a commitment to the floor with that logo or that statement edited?
Sure.
To this agenda item?
I think you can do that. I think you can also
It
approve
may
the
be
agenda
less-
item not
less
to
money.
exceed the price that's offered there too.
Right. Just for the knowledge of the board and the knowledge of the public, what was a total floor difference roughly. I know it was very
For
expensive.
a brand new floor peak.
Yeah, because I know we did it years ago, and I know this was the last sanding, because I told you it had been sanded at least 6.
It's 6 figures. It's everybody's 6 figures.
Okay.
And I don't know the exact numbers.
Yeah, but it's-
So,
It's major dollar.
yes. That would be a big capital project.
Right, right. And it was the last time.
And it's been many, many.
So there won't be the opportunity to speak with the coaches or anybody else about it? Is that, we've got to?
I can do it,
Is that what you're
I can
saying?
do it, but I think what I would recommend to the board is that you approve the price not to exceed $25,000.
I can,
My opinion would we approve it to not exceed 25,000 with the possibility that we edit. What your concerns is, I'm sure it's your concern. I don't know if anybody else has any concerns about the writing to whatever we, as the group and the coaches and who we can talk to, because that would still put us on the books. It
Right,
wouldn't stop us from getting on the books, right?
which is important.
And maybe it would be, I don't know, maybe it'd be less if we use less words. I don't know. I don't know how they charge by letter.
Well, part of that, so actually, it wouldn't be less, it would not be more, so.
Right.
The things you see with the vision statement
Sure.
and the hawks, that's cut out, so that's the real wood. Obviously, if you wanted
Yeah.
that white or orange or anything like that, that's where paint starts to
Yeah.
go up. So taking it off would not increase.
Yeah, I'm okay with the rear wood. I don't know if everybody else is.
I'm not opposed to the words being there, but I would love to hear the feedback by the coaches.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Let's just
Like, is it
include-
the coloring, is it, you know?
Yeah,
what I
just
mean?
include
Is there
them in on
something?
it.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
good
and
with
then-
the rear wood.
Everybody else that uses the.
Yeah, of
board as
course.
well.
Doesn't have to be
I
the
mean, it's used
coaches.
for, yeah, it's used for a
Yeah.
lot of things. It's been a good community place, so I think, bringing in. Not just coaches, it's used for band concerts and used for, choir concerts and things like in breakfasts, so. Sure. Yeah, we've already had a motion, and it's not to exceed 25,000, so.
Okay, so the edit to the motion would be, we'll approve the gym floor as it is with getting coach input on the verbiage and the change in the verbiage not to exceed the original bid of.
I don't think it was coach input, it was, just
Yeah.
the buy-in,
Yeah.
Other,
General,
Other,
yeah,
other activities, yeah.
absolutely.
not to exceed the current bid of,
25,000.
got it?
Close, I think, clear as mud, I think. I think the motion would be that you recommend Dijon Inc. Not to exceed $25,000 for the purpose to resurface, sand, paint, and refinish the gym floor with input from district staff.
Correct. And I don't know what,
Don't ask me to repeat.
I don't know what our deadline is.
I think we can get it on.
Yeah, we'll get on the books. I don't know what our deadline is for testing the market. I would imagine like weeks before they do. it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for the change
I'll second.
by everybody, signify say aye, if they agree. Aye. Same sign for opposed. That passes. Great job. Okay, next item 5.02. Motion to censure.
I move to censure Mr. Pete Coates for willful and persistent failure to comply with policies adopted and enforced by the Board of Education regarding Board of Education procedure, personnel issues, student discipline, and staff conduct.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
By roll call vote.
Aye.
Please.
Yes, that's who you are. Aye.
No.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Point of clarification, you're not allowed to vote.
Okay, censure passes. Next item on the agenda, reorganization of the Board of Education. Do I have a motion to reorganize?
I'll make a motion to reorganize the Board of Education.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By roll call vote?
Aye.
No, it's not,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Aye.
No.
Nay.
Aye.
The motion passes to reorganize. Is that planned for tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to
You'll have to
address,
take over.
you have to take over, you can still do it in the first one. You
Okay,
have to address each office separately, starting with the president. Starting with the president, yes, sir. Okay.
I make some comments here. Can I make some comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can't forget that one, but.
There's only so much that you can say about that. We kind of, yeah,
Excuse me, I can't say.
said, yeah.
I can't say much about
No,
that.
no, there's. Based on previous comments or made in other meetings, that's all I'm saying is there's so much you can say.
So you can't say that.
No, I didn't say that. Just,
Okay, I called MSBA attorney today. And they told me that they didn't see anything wrong with how I described this situation. And so I'm not sure that, you know, they totally did not believe that made any sense to do what we were doing. And I don't disagree. I don't think we quite understand what we're doing. And I wish somebody else would have reached out to MSBA and talked to the attorneys because they didn't think it was necessary.
well, MSB didn't have all of everything that we had and we had
No, they listened to me.
I
They did
understand.
hear it. And I mean, their point of view is that this wasn't a necessary step that needed to be taken.
I appreciate it, but it's already over for that, so they've already made the motion. So I appreciate it. Okay, so do I have any nominations for president of the school board?
I'd like to nominate Lisa Bender.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for school board president? Hearing none. I roll call vote for Lisa.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Lisa is now the president of the school board. You got the meeting, you have to do the rest of it.
So we have to do the rest of the positions. Your next position will be vice president.
Nominations for vice president. Then I don't have any. Wait, can we do the motion?
No.
No, do I have any nominations?
I'll nominate Faye, the vice president leading into this.
I'll second.
You accept?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I'll nominate him.
Tim, do you
I'll second. Oh, roll call vote.
any other nominations?
Oh, sorry, any other nominations? All right, they. Pete?
Oh, for the vote, I said.
Yeah,
no
for the vote
nominations.
for-
You said the other nomination. Yeah, aye.
Do I vote for
Yes,
myself?
Mhm.
Aye.
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 All right, now accepting nominations for secretary. I'll nominate Phyllis.
I second.
Second.
So, yeah, because I gotta let you accept first. So.
Appreciate your enthusiasm.
I second.
Any other nominations? All right, I roll call vote, so
Aye.
repeat.
Aye.
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 Aye. Accepting nominations for the position of treasurer.
Nominate Bull.
Accept.
I'll second. All right, any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll start with Phyllis, roll call.
Aye.
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 Yeah.
Aye.
Oh, we need MSBA delegate nomination.
I nominate Lisa.
Second that.
I'll accept. Any others? All right, Jeremy starting.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
We need an alternate, I believe, for MSBA delegate. I'm gonna nominate Jeremy Picker.
So,
A second.
I'll start with you this time since I messed up. Yeah.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye. And then I believe we need an SSD liaison, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, any nominations? Are you up for doing it again? I'd nominate Jeremy Picker.
Second. Sorry, what position is this?
The SSD liaison.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That concludes all.
You need a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, motion to, can I get a motion? to-
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
One more item. I need to hand this out to everybody. Before the meeting's adjourned, before the public meeting's adjourned. There's 3 of them right there. Pass it down.
So this will be on next month.
Next month's agenda.
Correct, the
Next
agenda was
agenda.
approved by the vote of the public here tonight, so the agenda cannot be amended at this point.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So you need a motion to move into executive session.
All right, motion to move into executive session.
I will second.
And then you hear roll.
All right, roll call. I'll start with Faye.
Aye.
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 Aye.